Hi, everyone. Welcome to Fail Forward Live. My name's Michelle Reguse McBain, and I am thrilled to be here with my personal mentor on my journey, CEO of JS Group, Janet Schijns. Janet has an incredible career. She was the founder of one of the most amazing consulting groups for the IT tech channel, helping hundreds of vendors, distributors, ISVs, MSPs around the world survive and thrive, especially during challenging times in the global pandemic. Prior to that, Janet worked as the channel chief for Verizon. She was the CVP of Motorola, and this is JS Group 2.0 because she once formed JS Group 1.0 back in the day as well. And Janet was recently ranked by CIO Look as the top 10 women in tech. Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today, Janet.
Well, thank you for having me. And I'm in the presence of a rock star as well, because you're definitely one of the biggest influencers in the industry. So I just love working with you, talking with you, being your friend, and just, watching your progress over the years has been inspiring. And for everybody listening that doesn't know this, Michelle was my reverse mentor to get me good at social media and social selling. Gosh, more years ago now than we probably want to admit, but, more than 5 or 6 years ago, right? Michelle stepped in and helped me so you too can have hope that you can have a good social media brand. It's possible for all of us.
No, you're humble and the queen of social media. My favorite story is that Janet once won a most influential person at an event that she didn't even attend, thanks to social media, which is
It's the
pretty.
truth. I was great. It was like, hey, come pick up your award. You won. I'm like, well, that's good because you guys were in San Francisco and I'm in New Jersey, so that's going to be an interesting trip.
I love it. I love it. So,
I
for
know.
who has been living under a rock and they don't know who JS Group is, could you tell the audience who you are and what you do?
Sure. We're really defined by one thing, and it's all about growth in the channel. It's all about saving the channel as a route to market and distribution, particularly now as we're in the boom, boom growth years to make sure that vendors and partners and the whole industry understands and embraces and does the right thing to make the channel successful. We have three practices, one around channel evolution and acceleration for vendors to help them change those programs, offer the right demand generation, lead generation, and most importantly, the right engagement with the partner community. Then we have partner programs and offers for marketing enablement and sales enablement. Our industry best in class social selling program, 40x ROI last time I checked, which Michelle, you've been a part of. So we appreciate that very much. The work of all the JS Group team there has been amazing. And then our third thing is really around how we work with leaders to recraft their strategy, their story, their growth plan. So we'll work with VCs, sometimes we work with investors, startups, new businesses to figure out how will they go on the channel, where will they go on the channel, and how will it make sense in their business plan.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Now, I'm going to start my questions by asking you a kind of odd question, but what was your first job and what did it teach you?
So I always tell everybody I really had two first jobs at the same time, concurrently. I got a job at a dress store that my mom shopped at on Saturdays, where I was like that person who ran the new size back to the dressing room when we used to all shop in person.
Oh,
Um, and it was amazing. And then, so it was this really beautiful dress shop and it smelled fantastic and I got to dress up. And then my other job that my dad got me was cleaning rooms at a local bed and breakfast. So I went from, beautifully dressed up, made up women there spending money in this boutique to go clean somebody's waste paper basket in their bathroom.
I've had,
And really, when I tell people that, they're like, are you kidding? You cleaned rooms? I'm like, yeah, I did. And it was a great message because I learned the value of not only hard work, but also not judging books by their covers because the folks that were on that housekeeping staff and I was like augmenting a friend, had a baby and my dad, they needed one more cleaning person in the friend's bed and breakfast. And he was like, she'll do it for the summer. And it taught me that actually those people that worked there and that cleaning staff were nicer, more genuine, happier people than most
mm,
of the people I saw coming in spending thousands of dollars on dresses and other things. And it truly taught me the value of being humble and working hard.
I love that so much. I do too. So that was my mom was a single mom. I had three jobs in college while I went to school. So one of them was working as an events coordinator for our college, and the gig there was
Fun.
fun because I got to go to all the events for free. So Broadway shows and sporting
Oh,
events. That was a win because I lived in New York City. The second job that I had was I worked as a waitress through most of my high school and college. And so I would waitress, and that taught me a lot about customer experience and pleasing people. And the third
oh
job that I
yeah,
also was they would rent our college in the summer. So they would have people, and we would do the same thing. We would clean the rooms and we would get it ready. And college kids are not the most respectful of
yeah,
environment.
yeah.
So, but we would have the Olympic archery team, for example, stayed at our college over the summer because it was near
That's
Manhattan, a
cool.
little bit off. So, but that was a very humbling experience, but it also taught me so much about just appreciation. And I always say this rule, Janet. I say, if you travel somewhere and you want to go to where the locals go, I never ask the concierge, I ask the housekeeper because I want to know where the real people go and they have
Thank
fun.
you. Oh, that's a great tip. Yeah.
Awesome. So, did you know that you always wanted to work in technology?
No. So true story. I went to college. I actually went where I went to college because I wanted to study with this gentleman, Harvey Bloomberg, who was a, part of the Bloomberg clan, by the way, in finance. I wanted to trade euro dollars. I thought this was super exciting. And I lasted about 3 days after graduation. I was not cut out for that particular endeavor. And my boss got me an interview at L'Oreal. And I went to the interview. And first of all, up until that time, I thought I was okay looking. And then I got in that room interviewing at L'Oreal and was like, oh
You're
my,
lovely.
I am like not good looking at all.
No.
And I'm short. And I'm short, even though I'm 5'7". And, yeah,
You
I'm like a
won.
giant. And but I was the only person, 12 people applicant for this really cool merchandising role, and I was the only person that passed the math test.
Wow.
And so that's how I got in there was, okay, good lesson too, right? Do your math. But yeah, so I switched careers kind of overnight, and then I was there, and a team from IBM came in, and they tried to give us a presentation on a CRM, early CRM kind of approach, and it was all gobbledygook. And
Mm,
our senior leader in our group, it's like, I don't even know what they're saying. And I wanted the software because I understood why we needed it. So I helped them. We stayed very late, got some pizza, rewrote it, took it back into the boss. The boss said, oh, okay, you should buy that then. And then they asked me if I would do it for some, it was a partner, an IBM partner. And they asked if I would do it for 10 other clients. And I was like, well, I can't do that. I have a job. Like, well, this is how much we'll pay you. Like, well, that pays what my job pays. And that was the birth of JS Group. So I
wow.
walked out of corporate America, took that contract, and said, well, if I can make that with one client, which will be maybe 10 hours a week work, maybe I can do more. So that was how JS Group 1 started.
That's amazing. I didn't know that whole story, and I love that
Yeah.
learning the connecting of the dots. And sometimes the tea leaves just point you in a direction, right, of where you
Yeah.
need to be. So you fast forward, you entered corporate America at some point. I believe Motorola. Was there an acquisition of
There
JS
was,
Group?
yeah, there was. The economy was shaky in the 2008, in the year of the aught, and it was an interesting time. Our business had grown, but my kids had also grown. And what
Mm,
was great, I mean, it was so great to be with the kids when they were younger. The kids were now high school, college, right? I didn't really need to keep doing that. And I was doing a lot of consulting for Motorola. And one night, as that things happen over coffee and cake, because it should always be cake, over coffee and cake, the CEO of Symbol, who they were acquiring, said, "Why don't you come in and run the channel?" And I
wow.
said, "Well, I don't know how that would work because I have a team of people and I have this and I have that." And he said, "They'll all come in and we'll give you a buyout."
Wow.
And I just thought, that really, I had never thought of it that way. I went back and talked to the team, talked to some folks, and never looked back. It was like, okay, well, time to go back to corporate America. Now, don't get me wrong. I think I cried probably 107 times in the 60 days of the transition because I really like being self-employed and
Right.
I'm thrilled to be back. And those 10 years of soul sucking, family not even second, but a distant 17th.
Mm.
um and all the promises that were made of, oh no, it'll be fine, you don't have to travel a lot, and no, you can work from home, and everything else that went out the door about 6 weeks after I started. It just was different. And I always tell everybody this story because I think as a woman leader it's kind of an interesting moment. So the people that brought me in
Mm.
talked me into this deal, said come on in, the CEO and the president. um, they were dismissed 5 weeks after I joined.
Wow.
They left. And Motorola was part of the Symbol thing. They consolidated leadership, and I had a whole new boss,
Wow.
and everybody who was my sponsor was gone, and I had shut my business down.
Yikes.
And it was like that horrifying moment where you say, "Oh, creaks, this isn't good." Um, and picking yourself up that next day when all your sponsors are gone is
Mm.
a really interesting moment. But and so I will tell this story with your permission.
Please.
The next day we had a town hall, and I was standing with the new president, who I ultimately adored. Gene Delaney was one of the best leaders I ever had the honor to work for, and he was standing there. We didn't know each other, and they had laid off a lot of people from the Symbol team, and we were in front of an audience in Holtsville, New York, which was Symbol World. And he said, "Any thoughts?" And I said, yes, there's about 1,000 people out there that are worried about how they pay their mortgage. You're
Mm.
not talking to Symbol employees. You're talking to moms and dads of kids with tuition and mortgages and car payments who are scared to death. And I
Right.
thought, because I thought to myself, what's the worst that's going to happen? He's going to fire me, right? And I said, that's who you're talking to. And you got rid of their leaders, and they're really, really scared. That's
Right.
my advice. Because he was like, any high notes you want me to hit or something. That's my advice. And he looked back at me and he said, you're going to report to me, okay? Because I was supposed to report to somebody else. And he goes, you're going to report directly to me. We'll talk about it later, okay? And I was like, okay. And I still remember thinking the guts that that moment took to just tell the truth
Right.
actually ended up paying off.
Wow. Powerful. So powerful. And recently you were a guest on the Clubhouse and you used a similar word, which was the empathy. And that is
Yep.
what resonates to me in that story, right? Because I think, and I had the great pleasure of working in JS Group as, not prepared. We're talking about saving the channel and marketing strategy. And then whoop, a global pandemic. Nobody was
Right.
so in that moment, what I realized is that our customers, to your point, this is how they pay their bills. This is how they put food on their table. This is how they put their children through education. And if they can't make money in challenging times or they don't have a path forward, how do they survive? So I love the concept of save the channel. And I love what you do for the community. I think it's so important. It is so powerful.
Well, that's why us working together was always so fun, right? As your mentor all these years, and you as my reverse mentor, but also just what we did at JS Group and what you're doing now in your career. It's this understanding that we all have our lives,
Mm.
and there's various stages of our lives, and all of us need to do things for our family, for ourselves, we're all in different stages, and that empathy to be kinder than the situation calls for, I think is the hallmark of a great leader. Just be
Absolutely.
kinder than the situation calls for. And you demonstrated that in ACEs throughout with all your clients here at JS Group, as you were working with us. You showed that a million times over.
Thank you so much. That means the world to me, especially coming from you. So I'm going to ask you, because I know who my mentors are, who are your three mentors and what have they taught you in your
Well,
journey?
I already mentioned you as my reverse mentor, so I have to put that over here, and I'll talk about the other three. So I mentioned Gene Delaney. So Gene Delaney was the president of Motorola Enterprise Solutions, and what he really taught me um, was to be very salient in my making a point,
Mm.
to cut it down. He once told me, talk in headlines, let people ask you to read them the story.
Mm.
So don't tell the story, read the headline, pause, let people lean in, right? Let them show you they want to hear more. And he was just a great mentor. He was nothing like me. And so it was fantastic because I'm all kind of woo, right? And he was, very, and so he was a great mentor. I had the opportunity very early in my tech career to work with Andy Grove at Intel. He was phenomenal. I think the best thing he showed was humble. he used to go, and every Friday he would barbecue on the front of Intel. And, it started as a small company, but it became a very big company. So there he was, barbecuing, handing out ice creams, and he knew everybody's name, right? And I remember he told me one night, I was leaving and I said, goodbye, Michael, to the janitor. And he said, there you go. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, you don't know the people that work cleaning your office's name? You're not working that hard and you're not a very nice person. And I was
That's true.
like, oh, yeah. So it was really interesting. And then my third, I'm going to have to call it for my dad. My dad was handicapped. He loved you, but you were just, as he put it, that beautiful woman who came to see me.
Oh,
And so he's so excited with her beautiful little girls. And he just really was handicapped and never let it stop him. So, and he used to always say, look, if I can do it, you can do it. And he really taught me not to complain and to realize how lucky I was that I could stand up and walk into a meeting, that I could work hard, that I could be tired. And he was just an inspiration on just, work hard, chuck your chin in, and stop complaining.
ah, beautiful. And he was a wonderful man. May his memory be a blessing. His lives on in you, all of those things he
Thank you.
taught. The one thing that you said that really resonated with me stood out, and it was the one of the things I noticed about you when we worked together at Office Depot headquarters, which was I had a team as senior director of tech services, and many of that team had worked there for, I had one of the most diverse teams. Some people were there 40 years, some people had just started. So they said to me that stood out to every single one of them that you would walk through the halls and know everyone's name. And now I know a lot about your influence of where that came from, because that was one of the most powerful things. Because I was once in a company and I went in an elevator with a direct two tier boss above me, and he had no idea who I was. And I thought, well, that's weird. I think I see you every
That's
week in our.
not good.
Yeah, so that is something, it's so powerful for servant leadership. And really, it does go such a long way when people know. And I say, my mom always taught me that too. It doesn't matter if you're the president or the janitor, you treat everyone with the same respect. And I love that story as well. And
Yeah, and I always do a lookbook. So my poor support team, but whatever team I have, even when it's been 700 or 800 people, I ask every manager to roll up a lookbook so everybody has a picture in the org charts, not a name, and then I study it. It's like college.
that's a great
For
idea.
goodness sakes, look at the people's names, and look at their faces and look at their names and look at their faces. And then when you meet somebody, go back and look at them again on the picture. Like, okay, I know Sue now, right? And I just pride myself on it because I think for people that's so precious to them.
Absolutely. That's a really good tip. I'm going to take that one to heart, actually.
That's right.
Um, I have a question. So now, looking back in your career, you've been very successful. But if you look back to young Janet at 21 years old, just starting out in the world, bright eyed and bushy tailed, what advice would you give her as she embarks in the world?
Calm down. Two words, calm down. I was, it's funny. I was a little bit in a hurry, right, to
Mm,
get where I was going to go. And I don't think early on sometimes you realize that you have to move laterally or sometimes even down to get the experience that you need. And externally to people, it might look like, oh, wait, she used to be a this and she's a this, or why did she move to that company? What is she doing? Why did she do this? And over time, I realized that your career is not a ladder, it's a lattice. And you kind of
mm,
run around it. And then all of a sudden, one day, you leap like 3 levels if you've
right.
done it right. And, I think that's the first piece. And the second piece I would probably give myself is don't be so afraid to be yourself. For a lot of years, I hid this geek that's behind me that loves Star Wars and wears her Converse. And so I would put my uniform on to go to work, and then I would come home and be Janet. And, you know, I think I probably could have been geekier and this industry would have been okay with it. So it took me a little time to get there to be like, I'm okay with that. So I'm a Star Wars geek. I don't care if you know. It took me a little while to get there.
I think that's great. It reminds me of one of my first managers at Cisco. Her name was Judy Thompson. I started going there. I was 21 when I started, and I wore a pantsuit every single day in North Carolina, which wasn't a thing. Michelle, you don't need to dress that way. Just be yourself. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yes, the pantsuit.
Right? Because you don't embracing, and I think it's taken me probably 2 decades myself to just embrace my authentic, genuine self. I am
Just
who I
be
am.
you. Yeah.
Be yourself, and you will get a lot further because it comes across a lot more authentic than
Yeah.
trying to be something you're not, right? So
And I
very
think
good.
the pandemic kind of forced us into that, right? I think we all got stuck at home in a variety of things, and people just got a window into our real self that I hope that continues as we come back, and open the country back up.
Me too. And I think it's not just women or men because we talk a lot about work-life balance, but I think it's equal, right? We have our 5-year-old and
Oh,
7-year-old.
yeah.
They'll pop into and out of Jay's office or my office. And, I think all of my customers at some point heard them or met them and were very kind and nice. I met all their kids and their babies and their pets. And I think that was the thing that was sort of missing for all these years. I've been in tech for almost 18 years. And that was the first year that I think I've had that close of personal relationships outside of the hotel lobby bar or the, dinner that you would have a conversation. And that was probably one of the most intimate connections, those one-on-one calls where you really got to know each other in a very powerful.
Great. Yeah. Yeah.
So if you, I would be remiss, the purpose of this call, this podcast, for anyone who never tuned in before, is called Fail Forward and Live. And so we have to ask the question, what was your biggest failure in your life, professionally or personally, and what did it teach you?
So you already heard the first story about me joining somewhere and everybody leaving 6 weeks after I was there, and it turned out okay. But the other failure that always sticks with me is, and I think you learn things from different things, right? And so early in my career, I had the opportunity to take a role that was completely out of my comfort zone. And I did. And what it really was I mentioned I was at L'Oreal, I was in merchandising, I was doing all this stuff, right? And then I went to Motorola. Well,
Mm,
so I ended up leaving Motorola to go to Verizon.
mm,
And that was because Motorola and Verizon were like really good friends, and Verizon was in New Jersey. And so I tell this story because I think it's one of those moments where you go, oh, wow. So I was there maybe a year and a half or so, and my boss got promoted, and he said, hey, I want you to come forward and do this new role, but you're going to work for this other guy instead of having the leadership role. And I said, I don't want to do that.
mm.
And we got as far as me saying, I think I might resign.
Wow.
And I went home, and I was thinking about it, talking with some of my mentors. I called Jean Delaney. I called my dad, and had some tough conversations with a couple of women also that I really had a lot of faith for in the industry. And one of them said to me, why don't you just go in Monday and say, let me think about it. Give me a month to work for the person. If I don't, if it doesn't work out, will you let me take a package? Because they
Mm,
really didn't want me to go, right? And so I went in, and I will tell you that leader was unhappy with me for years about that. I won't say that he didn't help me get promoted again. He did, but he was unhappy with me. He thought I should have been a good trooper, right? You get tapped, you do it.
mm,
And it really was a mistake. I should have said, oh, interesting, tell me more. I could have went home and had the meltdown and said, I'm not going to do it, and I'm going to quit, and I'm going to everything else. I should not have done that in front of him. And
mm.
so what that failure taught me was that no matter how close you are with someone who is a client or your superior or even your peer, you really need to think carefully before you share a
Mm.
very negative emotion, and think about why you're having it. Because I was having it over ego. And it was
Yes.
ego. I was
Yeah.
reporting to this guy now. I wanted to stay reporting to this guy. I didn't step back and say his role just got 10 times bigger. Of course, I can't keep reporting to him.
Right.
I didn't think about what the new leader could do for my career. He'd been there 35 years. He was a great leader, one of the best bosses I ever had. A
Oh,
gentleman
wow.
named Tony Racine, in case he ends up listening,
Mhm.
and he helped my career more than almost anybody I can think of. And
Wow.
yet I almost missed that opportunity because I was pig-headed. And with a different boss who didn't know me as well, he would have said, "Package her out. I'm
Right.
done." Right? And I would have went in Monday and had a very different conversation. And I had to come back from that, for at least a couple of years with him, and at least a couple months, well, with my new boss who was like, "Oh, she's here reluctantly." And so that's my failure story. And if I could do it again, it all turned out great. I ended up having an amazing career at Verizon and got ahead and did wonderful things. But if I had it to do again, I would have thought before I spoke.
That's really powerful. That is a really interesting. I've never heard that story before, and I find that very intriguing to me because I think I would have a similar feeling at first. So I think that's good guidance, sage advice to sort of think, take it offline, table it, come back to it. Right? I know Jay, Jay,
Yep,
and I always talk about that. My husband Jay, of course, but for anyone who doesn't know, Jay
I
McBain is my husband.
do.
Of course. But so
I know.
he always says, even when he's frustrated, and he's like the most calm Canadian I've ever met in my life, but he's like, I have to sleep on it. I need to write. I need to think about it. And I'm like such a feisty,
Smart
so I'm like,
man, smart man.
good advice, definitely. So I have to ask, we talk a lot about work life balance, work life integration. Is it a myth? Do you think it's possible? I know you mentioned earlier some bait and switch expectations, especially as you were raising your children, even they were older. So I'm curious for all the women out there listening and men that have different opinions. What do you do to find work life balance? What inspires you? What mindfulness? What do you read? Where do you go to be calm and be excited and find yourself?
So I think the pandemic exposed the underbelly of work-life integration because there's no work-life balance. That's a complete sham. But that whole work-life integration, I think, got worse during the pandemic because there was no, "Oh, I'm on the road or I'm doing whatever," because no, you weren't. You were home. Everybody knew you were home. And there was boundaries that I think were broken that I hope we unbreak,
Mm.
because I think people have worked way too hard, in the past, 14 or so months. Um, Here's what I will tell you. If you want to get to the top, you are going to sacrifice things. You're going to. There's no two ways about it. The same way if you stay home and are with your family or friends or loved ones or whoever matters to you, you're going to sacrifice things in your career, right? There's just no two ways about it. One way or the other, you're going to sacrifice. The question is, how much do you sacrifice and when do you sacrifice? And that's what really comes to putting certain parameters in place, putting certain barriers in place, putting expectations in place for your loved ones, your family, your friends, putting expectations in place for your boss, your team, your peers.
Mm.
And even when you do that, know that if you want to get to the top, you're going to do something that is horrific and heartbreaking to your family at some point in time.
Mhm.
And you're going to have to hope that they understand because they understand the pressure you're under. And I always like to tell real stories. So my real story, Michelle, I do think you know this one. My real story is when my sister passed away very unexpectedly. I got a phone call at work that my sister had passed away. I had a board meeting the next day. And I spoke with my CEO, and my CEO said, all the appropriate things. I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm so sorry she's gone. Is she on life support or anything? No, no, they found her dead. Okay. So, you have to stay for the board meeting, right? Like, you're presenting a very big item to the board, and you understand you have to be here tomorrow, right? Can you do it? Can you do it? And calling my, 84 at the time year old father and telling him I couldn't come yet was the most horrific thing I ever did. I stayed
Yeah.
awake about it for years at night, feeling horrible. My father never gave it a second thought. He said, "Of course you can't. She's already dead. Do what you have to do." we'll plan the funeral when you get here. I have other people. I don't have another sibling, but thankfully my daughter was close by and was with him. He said, "I've got somebody with me. We're fine." But my sister had to go and be there, and not have her sister come. And I know she was passed away. She didn't know. But the things that my daughter had to do in that next 36 hours before I could get there, was just not. I felt awful. And that I use that as a
Yes.
real example, because when you're at the top of the org, there are going to be a time where you miss something really big. And I think setting the expectation ahead with your family that those kind of things might happen, and do they really want you to be that successful, or don't they, is really important. I was blessed that my family understood, but I'm always honest with women,
Yeah.
especially, to say, this is the sacrifice you will make. You will miss something, and you have to try to live with that.
Powerful. And I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm sorry you had to
Thank
experience
you.
that choice. it's
Yeah.
it's unfortunate to me that there is still an expectation. Like, obviously there is, but I couldn't even imagine being present in that boardroom that next day with going through that. Although sometimes I
Yep.
think I personally find myself throwing myself into work if there's something
Me
personally
too.
upset.
Me too. Me too.
So I see it from both ends, but it's such a challenge. And that's why, we've seen collectively 1 in 4 women leaving careers in tech during the pandemic, according to McKinsey's report. And you and I are very passionate about protecting and advocating and championing women and diversity in technology, starting Tech World's Half Group, the nonprofit, to help have a shared space, a safe space for women to come together, talk, engage, find careers, unleash the burdens of the world. Why are you so passionate about this subject?
You know, it's two things. First of all, you are right. Women leave technology at an alarming rate, especially right now. We don't want that, right? A resignation culture, or whatever trendy term anybody may come up with it. It impacts women in two very serious ways. The first one is economically.
Mm.
So, economic freedom, the ability to be able to provide for yourself, your family, your future, be able to retire, be able to afford a health setback, all of these things. Economic independence is severely impacted when women leave the industry, or just leave the employment arena, in any industry, but particularly in tech where the earnings are higher. And women struggle when they're not economically independent. They're 7 times more likely to be abused if they're not economically independent. Women without a job are 14 times more likely to be abused. So, these are things that keep being a woman safer by having that economic power. So that's the first thing. The second thing is what it does to the generation after us, right? It sets a precedent. It creates a trend. It makes a statement to our daughters, and our nieces and our friends' daughters, and every high school student and every grade school student that ever dreamed that they could be in our industry, when the people that they look up to leave the industry, for the wrong reasons. And so I think those two things, powerful impacts and powerful reasons. Now, look, there's always reasons why you might need to leave, but then go be a consultant for somebody, or keep your foot in the door a different way. Be more flexible. Find employment that's more flexible, but don't give in.
I love that so much. And, as a child of somebody who left an abusive marriage, as somebody who's been in a domestically abusive relationship, 1 in 3 women suffer this. That is a very powerful statement. And I never thought about it that way. And I'm so thankful you
Yep.
said that, because it's true. My mom taught me very early on to be very independent, regardless of anybody I'm with. And for years, I chose the wrong type of person. There might have been a magnet implanted in me
Me too.
somewhere. And I it. I'm very fortunate to find somebody that's a partner and a champion, and we help cheer each other on, and whatever that looks like, in Pride Month, whatever that looks like, or if you're independent and you're alone, that's fine too. But I absolutely love that statement, and I love the independence that career can give you. And you mentioned being a consultant, and so I'm going to ask. You are obviously a consultant. You're a CEO, a woman-owned business. What myth would you want to debunk for our audience listening today about any of those things?
So being self-employed is awesome as long as you're self-motivated, right? If you're not self-motivated, it's not as awesome. And so there's kind of two positive myths I'll share and then one negative one. So two positive myths. So one, the first one is you make a lot of money consulting. And there's two reasons for that. One is because you can charge for your work as opposed to, hey, you work here and that's, we're just going to pile on more and more and more and more and more stuff and just do it. And your pay doesn't change at all. So you can charge for your work. So if you're willing to work hard, work a lot of hours, you can make good money. But the second thing is
Mhm.
that the advantages that the tax codes give you are very important to consider. There's a lot of not only tax implications, but also government support right now, particularly for diverse, women owned, minority owned, and other businesses. So there's other financial benefits that you get as a business owner, particularly in a time like right now, that you can apply to specific areas of your life. So I've been really encouraging people to say, hey, if you're unhappy in corporate, if you're one of these people that they're calling the resignation culture that doesn't want to go back, right? Doesn't want to go back to going to the office and going on the plane and everything else. Think about your skill set. What can you charge for your skill set? Could you start consulting? Could you get people underneath you that do the same thing but cheaper, right? And you're editing their work. And then where would you sell that? Who
Mhm.
could you sell that through? Because there's big financial benefits. There's a lot of tax implications, and there's a lot of financial support for business right now. The new stimulus numbers are huge to help businesses. So those are like positive myths, right? Negative one, there is no such thing as a day off. If you own your own business, the buck stops firmly with you. It's not like being the boss,
Mhm.
right, at a company and saying, oh, I'm going to be out of the office for a week and this one's here. You really are almost always on. You can set it up so that you get a lot of time off. But ultimately, when whatever you want to say hits the fan, as an independent, consultant or owner, it's on you, right? So that I think is part of the negativity. You do get probably a little more plausible deniability in corporate.
Absolutely. You are the face of you are the Janet Schijns in the JS group. It is absolutely, definitely. I think that's very, very good, good myth debunking for anyone interested. And I would like to ask, I know obviously you've started traveling. We both lived in Florida, but you also have a home in New Jersey. So you're able to go back home to your farm. You have some cows there. It's so cute. I love
I do.
that.
It's so
Um,
cute.
where are you going next? Are you going to begin traveling, or where are your plans, professionally or personally? Where's your next trip to?
So I've been on a plane, so I'll give myself some credit for that. I flew up to New Jersey this time, which sure beats driving. And I'm starting to book things, but unlike in the past, where I think for a lot of us in the industry, it's the I have to be there, I have to be seen there. Oh, that's a must attend. Whatever, whatever. I'm really thinking more strategically about it. So what is it I'm trying to gain by traveling, and where would that be if I didn't go? And I saw no negative
Mm,
impact to our business from the pandemic. In fact, just the opposite. We got more done. It's easier to consult remote. You don't have to get on a plane. You don't lose all those hours. Our work product was excellent. We had no issues, very happy clients, very big results, and happier team members, right? Because they weren't on a plane and not being able to be home at night with their loved ones or be able to do what they want to do in their free time. So I'm being very judicious. I'm also saying for my team, if you're not comfortable traveling, then you're not traveling. That's it. I have a couple team members who have
right.
said, hey, I am just not comfortable. Fine, don't travel then. A lot of our services, we're going to price them
Yes.
differently, where if you want somebody live in front of you, it's going to be a lot more expensive. And I think we just have to be judicious about it, because if there's one thing we learned in the last 14 months is that we can get an awful lot done and still be home at night with our families. And I don't want to fall into a trap where I'm not.
Hmm. I love that. And I've mentioned that as well, that this was the first year in 10 years that I've been with my husband that we ate dinner together as a family every single night. The first
And it's
time that
lovely
that's
and it
ever
makes a
happened,
difference.
which
Right.
is so powerful. Yeah. And I know already, I'm sure he's getting the itch to travel, as so many road
I'm
warriors
sure.
do now that things open procrastinate it, but I do appreciate that time. And I do, and sometimes as he's, out at the Ritz-Carlton having Chilean sea bass and I'm eating a cold chicken nugget, then I feel like maybe the roles can be reversed and we could have a little equal opportunity in the near future. That would be nice as well. But I also have
That
not been
would
on a plane
be,
yet.
yes.
Yes. So
Okay, it's
future
been fine.
state,
Just for everybody listening, it's fine. It's good. It's okay.
you felt good about it. Okay, good.
I
Noted.
felt good about it.
For
And,
anyone,
like usually how there's 20 people with a cold on the plane that are snuffling and everything else, everybody's got masks on. So you feel a little less like you're going to catch whatever. Um,
that's actually a win. I hope that part continues, actually. I don't mind that because
Me
every
too.
time I fly, I do something. So maybe I
Yeah.
used to joke when I saw people wearing masks. I think I will incorporate it for the near term future, even when this is under reps, because I don't want to catch any
Smart.
colds or any. Yeah.
I don't blame you.
So for you, if somebody wanted to contact you, what is the best way to get a hold of you?
I always tell people the very best way to get a hold of me is to direct message me on LinkedIn. You can
Mhm.
find my name there, Janet Schijns, or direct message me on Twitter. I'm at Channel Smart, or you can search Janet Schijns, and both my Twitter and my LinkedIn will come up on Google. Or if you want to learn to spell my last name, it's JSCHIJNS at JSG Now.
Awesome. Now, I have two final buzz round questions for you, Janet. The first,
Ooh.
what's next? What's next for Janet?
Well, I think another cow. Uh, another cow, no more moving houses because I've done way too much moving houses. So one other cow, no more moving houses, and taking Tech World TAF to the next level. So not stopping JS Group anytime soon. When I do, we'll bring in a new CEO, and that person will run it. The team is strong, and we don't want to ever lose that trajectory. So years down the road, when that happens, I have a short list of people, and they've all volunteered already, so it's good. But taking Tech World TAF to the next level, getting that up and functioning in a bigger, broader way. Hopefully with some vendor sponsors that can help us, because that group is really keeping women in tech and helping women get jobs in tech. And we have a crisis. So I'm going to hope to spend a lot more time on that as we come into the fall.
Awesome. Love that. And by final buzz around question number two, if you could jump into my shoes in a role reversal, what question would you ask yourself that I might have missed?
Oh, in a role reversal. Are your kids okay? I never get asked, and I used to always volunteer it and often get a round of applause from the female audience. Are your kids actually okay? You did this big career, 7-figure income, C-suite, hard driving, but you have 2 kids. Like, are they okay? Or did it affect them?
Right.
So they're wonderful. You've met them both. They are very different. People. I will say that, as different as day and night could possibly be. My 2 kids are, but they're both great. They both got advanced educations. They both are off the payroll. They have healthy relationships. They've not been in jail. They're not addicted to anything, maybe other than a little bit of shopping in the spa for my daughter and power tools for my son. But that is always a question. I think people forget. Like they think it in their mind. Like, I wonder how her kids are. Were they okay with all that? And so I'll wrap that up by saying about 3 years ago, I was talking to my son about something in his business, Sean, and he said to me, I feel bad for the kids whose parents don't have a career and don't work, or don't, their moms just stayed home, because I don't know what they talk to them about now. And where do they go for advice? And I thought, okay, so
Wow.
if there was times in his childhood, which I'm sure there was, where he wished I was one of those moms, he quickly overcame it as an adult. So yes, the kids are okay.
Oh, I love that. And I do have one final question. It's kind of full circle to what you said earlier about the ball gown shop. I've heard a rumor from Kelly Dassinger that Channel Partners event that's coming up that I know you're going to be at, that you're speaking at, that she wants us all to wear some formal wear, some tuxedos and ball gowns. Are you in? Will you be going to that dress shop
Ah,
and finding a ball gown?
I told her as long as I can still wear my Converse, if I can wear my Converse with my dress, I'm happy to do it. More of a jeans person though, so she needs to understand it won't stay on too long. But I'm happy to get dressed up and go out for a night on the town with all our friends of the channel.
Awesome. Wonderful. Janet, thank you so much for being my guest today, for all of your inspiration and wisdom that you've imparted on our audience. And for me personally, I'm so thankful to have you in my life and I appreciate your time.
Ditto. Love having you in on my life as well.
Oh, and for everyone out there, don't be afraid to fail forward and live. I hope you have a great week. Take care.